Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Herbal Mana Podcast. Today is going to be pretty interesting. Today, we have Dr. Sybil Baladi. And Dr. Baladi has a heavyweight background. In her case, she has a doctorate degree and postdoctoral studies. So the doctoral degree, that was University of Geneva in Switzerland, postdoctoral at Berkeley, routine studies, hydration studies, and a book. Actually, it's a pretty good read, pretty quick read on hydrating. And those of you in the chronic pain space might be wondering, what is Todd doing talking about hydration? It's an essential part of managing all of your biological functions, often missed. Too often people are reaching for that energy drink or the morning pre-workout mix just to get through the day. And I can tell you it works. And I can tell you it comes at a horrible cost if that is the habit. And today we've got Dr. Baladi to really talk about what the cost is and a better approach to hydration. What we often hear doesn't make a lot of sense. I see guys in the gym carrying that gallon of water around, and they're just dead set. They've got to get through a gallon or two of water. And somehow they think that's the key. That's the magic to hydration. But really, what's the right approach? What do we need to be thinking about when it comes to hydration? Why does it matter?
So first, why does it matter? Hydration is crucial for health. It participates in all of the body's functions. Cells require hydration to live. We need water. We can indeed live without food for several weeks, but we cannot live without water for more than a few days. The water is not stored by the body, so it has to be replenished. You mentioned in the gym, sometimes you see people with a gallon of water. So there's an optimal volume of water that is required by the body. And if we drink too much water, it can be also detrimental to health. Too little water can be detrimental to health, but too much water can also be detrimental to health. We need an optimal level of water in our body. And the body is composed of about 60% of water. It depends if you are a female or a male. The males usually have more water in their body. They have maybe 60 to 65% of water in their body, while females have less, 50 to 55% of water in their body. And the level of water decreases as we age, actually. So again, water is crucial for health, and we need an optimal quantity of water in the body to be able to live optimally and to optimize health and wellness.
I've heard, and I've heard this for years, 8 glasses, 8 ounces, 64-ounce minimum. I did a little looking, getting ready to talk to you. I cannot find any scientific study or basis saying you've got to have your 8 glasses of 8 ounces just to hit your minimum. Where did that notion even come from?
So you are right. This notion originates from 1945, from report from the Food and Nutrition Board of the National Academy of Science that stated that a male, it was only males were studied at the time. So a male who eats diet of, there's two different, it's either 2000 or 25, but let's choose 2000. A male who eats a diet with 2000 kilocalories per day will need 2000 milliliters of water. So because we need, this is based on the biochemical processes, we need water to digest. Actually, our enzymes, our stomach needs, our cells needs water to digest food. So we need 1 milliliter, which is a teeny tiny amount. It's in the metric system, right? It's a teeny tiny amount. We need 1 milliliter of water to digest 1 kilocalorie of food. So again, based on this document dated from 1945, we need 2000 milliliters of water, which is 2 liters, and 2 liters is about roughly 6 to 8 glasses of water. And surprisingly, there was no scientific evidence. There was no calculation, no authorities, it was not backed by a scientific evidence. So this is very surprising.
Happy to hear that because I could not find anything other than just kind of a bare statement. You have an amount of calories, you have an amount of water, and there it is. And I could not find out why. It just was. It's stuck. It's still talked about.
Exactly.
As though it is the rule, the essential amount, but not necessarily the right amount.
Absolutely.
So how do we go about getting the right amount? Is there a formula, an approach? How do you go about this? Actually, I kind of know because I've cheated and read the book. By the way, folks, it's a good read, and it really opens your eyes to what's going on as far as some of the chemistry and everything that's being affected, because it affects all of your bodily functions. So anyway, back to what do you do? What's a better approach?
So I have developed a new hydration method, which is described in the book that you have just shown. And my method is not based on the volume of water intake, but it is based on the timing of water intake, of the frequency of water intake. And actually, this is like a new trend. And people like in the biomedical research and the public health authorities, they are starting to say that we should base our water intake with the frequency, and we should drink small amounts of water regularly during the day. So it's a new trend. It's like a new concept. And I wrote this book. I didn't know about this new concept actually when I started to write my book. It was several years ago, but I recently self-published it. And again, the optimal way to drink water, to hydrate, is to take small amounts of water or fluid, but water is ideal, to take small amounts of fluid regularly during the day. And in my book, I mention every half an hour. So again, this helps equilibrate your body with sufficient water, and it helps. So there are different compartments in the body, the intracellular compartments and extracellular compartments. So there are compartments inside the cells and compartments outside the cells in the body. And there's a lot of fluctuation of dynamic. The water goes inside the cells, outside the cells, inside the blood. There's a lot of fluctuations of the water, a lot of turnover. But again, we need, in order to be able to optimally hydrate the cells, inside the cells, also outside the cells, which is critical, we need to hydrate frequently our body with small amounts of water.
Some people say, I can't remember to drink, but I think that's kind of a weak excuse these days. We all have cell phones with timers. I actually have a timer. I keep it under my monitor. I'm using it now for water because of you, but I was also using it because I needed to be reminded to get up and move, because I'll start working and I kind of get lost in the work and I might sit for an hour or two just working and working, which is not good. It's not good for my back, not good for my joints. So I set a timer, which used to be just to remind me to get up. Now it's to remind me to get up and take a drink, and I set it for typically 20 minutes so that I don't miss the drinking and I don't miss moving. And I just get up, walk for even a minute or two, just keep things rolling. I don't think we have an excuse. I don't think somebody can say, I can't remember. I do hear people say, well, I don't like water. I don't really care for that excuse either. It doesn't really matter. You need the water, whether you like it or not. Now, what happens if we don't have enough? What are some of the biological problems that pop up when we don't hydrate adequately and frequently?
So there's a new recent NIH publication that was published in The Lancet, which is a high impact factor medical journal, that has shown that chronic underhydration, so low hydration, increases the risks of developing chronic diseases such as dementia, diabetes, heart failure, and stroke.
Smokes.
It also increases the risks of being biological older, so accelerated body aging, which means that if you have a body of 60 years old chronologically, if you are chronically underhydrated, you actually have a body of 80 years old biologically. Chronic underhydration also increases the risk of early death, dying after a younger age. And this is a relatively new concept, actually. The detrimental effects of chronic underhydration on the long-term health outcomes. And there was also a recent study, 2019, of the NIH as well. It was a mouse study. So they have two groups of mice, the control mice and the control group and the test group. Both groups had the same diet, same food that contained about 30% of water within the food. The control group had limited access of water. the test group did not have water. It was on a water restriction. So again, same food, one group with water, the other group of mice without water. The NIH group has demonstrated that the mice without water, they died 6 months before the control group. So mice, they usually live for 2 years. So again, the mice without water, they died earlier, and they developed diseases similar to humans, actually. Kidney disease, heart disease, and neurodegenerative diseases. So again, it's a relatively new concept, but it is critical.
It is 6 months on a 2-year lifespan. That is a massive reduction in lifespan. Holy smokes.
Yes, exactly.
And that was a peer-reviewed study.
Absolutely, yes.
Which is really important, folks. When you're looking at studies, you don't necessarily want to go to Instagram to get your information. It's really nice to get a peer-reviewed study. That's why I love going to PubMed and locations like that where I can see scholars that are actually debating and reviewing each other's work. So it's the real deal. Well, that's interesting. 6 months on a 24-month lifespan. That's impactful. Huh.
Absolutely, yes.
Especially on the chronic disease side. I've always thought about it as a problem for sinuses and illness and joint creakiness, because I know that if I don't hydrate well, my joints aren't as happy. I've had various joint surgeries, and I can tell just by how I feel if I'm not hydrating well. I feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my lips, and I start to feel it in my joints. And then I had a really bad habit because I have sinus issues. I used to use antihistamines. I did not realize how counterproductive they could be because I'm just drying everything that I should be hydrating. And I had to be educated by my sinus doctor following some sinus surgeries because that made such a mess. Hydration is so critical just for basic wellness. If I don't hydrate, then I don't get the flow of hydration through my sinuses that are frontline protection for me against airborne pathogens. So I was thinking I was helping myself to breathe better. And in fact, I was just setting myself up for more illness, more problems. And
Exactly.
The folks at the grocery store selling those over-the-counter sprays and pills, they don't care. They're not evaluating the hydration need.
I'm pleasantly surprised that you mentioned your doctor told you to hydrate more. Is that right? Because usually they don't do that.
Well, he focuses only on sinuses. He is a sinus doctor only. And I've been seeing him for quite a few years. And one of the primary problems that I had was just perpetual dryness. I'd had a surgery back in the 90s because I had some really bad sinus issues. We couldn't clear those up. I got pneumonia. We couldn't clear up the pneumonia. Eventually, they found I had sinuses that were just fully blocked. That surgery that I had in the early 90s, they had cut out the primary turbinates, which you need in your sinuses to help warm the air as you breathe in. They moisturize the air as you breathe in. I don't have those. So when the air hits my sinuses, I don't have that moisturizing, that little buffer against dry, cold air. So when I saw eventually a different sinus doctor, one that just focuses only on sinuses, one of the first things we started working on was how to keep my sinuses moist, warm, happy, because I don't have that primary defense. We all have that with our sinuses. We have up to 2 quarts, 2 liters of drainage from our sinuses, which is just that sloughing off of the moisture to take away the pathogens. And if we don't hydrate, we don't get that primary frontline protection. We lose that from lack of hydrating. So if I'm reaching my Red Bull, or in my case, if I'm using antihistamines, I'm foregoing some of that protection.
Exactly. And I mentioned in my book actually that hydrating the membranes is critical to fight against pathogens. It is the first barrier to fight against microorganisms that can enter the body through the nose.
It's right there.
Yes, exactly.
By the way, this is only a few bucks. Great read. Great read. Now, as far as chemical reactions in the body, why do I need water for the various chemical reactions? Why the hydration? And then what happens if I don't hydrate enough?
So actually, all the chemical and biochemical reactions in the body require water. As you mentioned, I'm a protein chemist. My expertise is in the characterization of proteins with analytical methods. So I used to work in laboratories, and in laboratories, we use tubes or microplates to analyze proteins. In vitro, it's called in vitro. And we have to give the protein to allow the protein to be in an ideal environment for them to function and to analyze them. And so proteins, they need water, otherwise they just dry out and they degrade and they precipitate. And they also need what is called ionic strength. So they need electrolytes like sodium, for example, potassium, copper. Some proteins function with copper, zinc, calcium binding proteins. So most of the proteins actually, they require a mineral to function in our body. And again, I have studied proteins in vitro, but a similar, it happens in vivo in our body. Proteins, they behave the same as in a little tube. So again, in our body, proteins and cells and tissues require minerals, as I mentioned, calcium, sodium, potassium, to be it's called homeostasis, to be in a stable environment that is optimal for the body to function. And the most important thing for the body is actually water. Water is a chemical by itself. So again, water is essential for the function of our body, the function of our cells, of our tissues, of our proteins. Proteins are essential elements in our body to function. When we see it's because of proteins in our eyes. When we digest, it's thanks to proteins, enzymes in our stomach, in our intestines. When we move our arm, it's because of proteins. So again, proteins are crucial for the function of the body, and they require water, as it can be analyzed in the laboratory, but in the body, it is similar. That's what we analyze in the laboratory in tubes. And we can also analyze cells in Petri dishes. I have done that during my career as a scientist. In Petri dishes, again, cells, they require water. But also they require a buffer, a solution which contains glucose for the cells to be able to live, or sodium, as I mentioned, potassium, other minerals like that, other elements.
For the water that I drink, do I need to be concerned about mineralization in the water? Should I be worried about sodium? Should I be worried about potassium? Should I be concerned about adding salts or something to the water before I drink the water?
So it depends of your metabolism and your physical condition. Usually it's not good for the body because it increases blood pressure, which is detrimental to health. And sodium, we have sodium in our food, usually when we eat food. Actually, most of the minerals, if we eat a healthy diet, most of the minerals can be in the food that we ingest. Magnesium, there's a lot of magnesium in cashew nuts, peanuts, potassium in bananas, sodium sodium is in many food actually. And copper is important as well. As I mentioned, copper, this is important for our hemoglobin.
Copper can be hard.
Exactly.
I have found of late that I don't get enough copper. I do blood work because of challenges that I have, and I'm actually supplementing with copper. The first time in my life, I've never had that issue. I just can't seem to get enough copper and enough magnesium, just based on blood work and other things we're doing. So it's interesting, kind of a battle. It's also challenging these days to get good quality food, to get enough of those nutrients, the minerals and such, into our bodies. That's becoming a real challenge because our food supply today isn't what it used to be in a lot of ways. Just the industrial farming practices haven't been really kind to the food supply. So it can be a challenge.
Yes, that's true. So copper can be found in liver, beef liver, and in cashew nuts as well, and in lobster. But you may be right. Maybe it's not for some people. Again, the answer is
I
some
just need to
people
eat
will
more
eat.
lobster. I could do that. Yeah, I could eat more lobster. I like lobster. That works. Liver, not so much. Although, I'm not a real fan of liver, but I know how important liver can be. You can actually get liver in capsules these days, high quality, encapsulated. I'm testing those right now because I know the value of having some of those organ meats, like liver for the copper. It's part of my supplementation right now. Kind of interesting.
So again, yes, some people will need supplements. The ones that you mentioned, for example, magnesium is crucial for cramps as well, right? But some people, they can just drink water, tap water, which is what I'm doing. But sometimes I change. When I'm at home, I drink tap water, and when I'm at the office or in a restaurant, I drink sparkling water. So we can change between tap water, sparkling water, bottled water, ideally spring water or mineral water.
What about when somebody is drinking but it's an energy drink. What happens in the body if they're drinking, say, a Red Bull? It might be, I'm not even sure how big a Red Bull is. I haven't had a Red Bull, but let's say it's 20 ounces, but it has 300 milligrams of caffeine. How much of that 20 ounces is really beneficial hydration? How much of that's really going to help if they're taking that diuretic, which is a wonderful source of energy, but a potent diuretic? What happens then in the body if that's how people are thinking they're hydrating?
Yes, many people think that if they drink tea or coffee during the day, they hydrate themselves, but this is not entirely true. The reason is because coffee and tea and Red Bull, maybe not, maybe there's Red Bull without caffeine. I'm not.
I don't think so. I think that's the selling point. I think. I've never had Red Bull. I was more of a Monster guy before I cleaned up my caffeine act, but not very beneficial. What's happening when they're drinking the caffeinated drink?
So coffee contains caffeine, or the Red Bull or the Coke as well. Tea contain caffeine, and caffeine is actually a mild diuretic. It tells so there are receptors in your brain and in your kidney and also in your stomach. Maybe it is still under study, actually. It is very complex to analyze the effect of caffeine on the body. But caffeine is a diuretic. So what it tells to your body is to excrete the water from your cells, which is not ideal. And what it does, it dilutes urine. So you think you are hydrated because, for example, the color of your urine is light. Again, you think you are and you urinate. You think you are hydrated, but you may not be ideally hydrated because, again, the water is your cells excrete. They receive a signal from the caffeine, which tells your body and your cells to excrete water and to remove water from your body. So it may not be ideal. Of course, coffee and tea, they contain water. So if you only have water or if you only have coffee or tea to drink, to hydrate, you should drink coffee or tea. It's better than nothing. But that being said, it doesn't hydrate your body as optimally as water, as pure water, tap water or mineral or spring water.
Does the poor hydration affect connective tissue? The cartilage, the ligaments, the tendons?
Absolutely, yes.
What happens? What happens to those tissues if the hydration is poor?
So cartilage is like you can think of cartilage like a sponge, and if it doesn't have sufficient water, it will just be stiff, right? And it can degrade. So cartilage needs water like a sponge needs water to be flexible and to function optimally. And when cartilage degrades, cartilage is it functions as like a cushion between our bones. We are a very complex organism, right? Humans are extremely complex. And between the bones, there's this cartilage. There's also synovial fluid, and this prevents the bones to touch together, to touch and to generate pain. So again, synovial fluid requires, it's mainly composed of water. There's also some sugars, hyaluronic acid, which is a polymer, a big sugar molecule, but it is mainly composed of water, synovial fluid, cartilage. Cartilage contains between 60 and 80% of water. Synovial fluid, maybe 90% of water. I will need to double check how much water, but a lot. If your body is lacking water, the cartilage will suffer. Synovial fluid will not be able to perform its role of cushion, like absorb the shocks, and you will have joint pain. It can increase your pain in the joints, and it can be extremely painful, actually.
Yeah, and a contributing factor to accelerating osteoarthritis because you're burning through that cushion, that shock absorber. And
Exactly.
cartilage is really hard to regrow. It just is stubborn. There's not much of a blood supply. It does look kind of like a nice white little sponge. I've seen several of my surgeries, and it's beautiful, pristine, white. But on the other hand, it's pristine, it's white. It doesn't have much of a blood supply. So once I damage the cartilage, it's pretty hard to come back from, which is why the hydration and protecting that joint becomes paramount. Having the synovial fluid, the hydration of those connective tissues. Those connective tissues are just difficult to repair, slow to repair. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of experience slowly repairing those connective tissues. And part of it was, bad genes, bad luck, bad judgment, and then just some bad practices. Not knowing how to hydrate and take care of the joint, not knowing how to do the proper therapies on the nutritional side. It took me years and a lot of smart folks coaching me to help me understand there's a lot more to recovering from an injury than just doing the physical therapy. There's a lot more going on. What does the body feel like when we're becoming dehydrated? If we're not getting proper hydration, what does a person feel? How do they know? Some people just seem to be in tune. Some people not so much in tune. So somebody that's not too in tune, what should they be looking for if they want to start breaking their bad habit of not being hydrated? Yeah, what do they feel? If you're not hydrating properly, do you feel it somehow in your body? Does it show up somewhere?
Again, it depends. But most of the time, if you are just hypohydrated or underhydrated, you don't feel anything. Except that eventually, if you are chronically underhydrated, you will start to feel symptoms. Your digestion may be impaired, you may have headaches, and as I mentioned, you can develop chronic diseases such as dementia, diabetes, heart failure, and stroke. So it's more in the long term that you can detect something, that you can have symptoms, but it depends of each person again. Some people, if they are hypohydrated just a little bit, they are just lacking a little bit of water, maybe they will have headaches. But what's important is they may not do the connection between I have a headache and it's because I'm dehydrated or underhydrated. That
That's
is
a good
key.
point.
Yes. Because
I've actually talked to a couple of docs lately, functional medicine folks, helping folks with chronic headaches. And their advice, and I've heard this several times now, before we talk about medication, before you come see me again today, I want you to hydrate. And they're saying in about 90% of the cases, folks are calling saying, Doc, I've got another headache. 90% of the time, if they hydrate well, wait 20 minutes, the headache dissipates or is significantly diminished.
exactly.
Wow. Instead of saying reach for the pill, reach for the med, instead hydrate first and then let's see where you really are.
Hydrate
Find
first.
out. Yeah. Oh, hey, I like that glass. Looks just like that glass. Very nice.
Let's hydrate. Time to hydrate.
And it doesn't take much. It doesn't
It
take
is
much.
so simple.
Yeah. Some days like today, I have to talk all day long, doing things, business meetings, interviews like this. And I used to think I needed to guzzle a whole bunch of water, then set the empty glass aside and talk for an hour. Oh, it's so much easier doing it your style. Take a sip every 20 minutes or so. Things are good. I feel a lot better. It's a lot simpler.
Yes.
Anyway, the headache thing, back to that is pretty profound. And I've only noticed that recently. I've seen a couple of articles and I've talked to a handful of physicians because I've been doing podcasts and other things talking about that simple impact, which is a pretty good indication that a lot of folks are chronically underhydrating. And to see that show up, and these aren't simple headache folks. These folks are folks that are prone to migraines. That's why it was really catching my attention. It's not just my kind of headache, a simple headache. These are folks with more profound issues. And to know that hydration can help up to 90% get relief before reaching for some other medication or a pill. I thought that was pretty amazing.
Absolutely. I should add that it's not just a one-time thing, right? It's not today I have a headache, so I should hydrate. Hydration should be done every day. We should hydrate every day optimally. And again, by taking small amounts of water frequently throughout the day. The first thing in the morning and until bedtime. Take small amounts of water. It's not, this will help prevent diseases, right? It can help prevent diseases. It can help migraines, the prevention of migraines and headaches. I would add that it's not a miracle solution, right? You cannot cure everything or treat everything with water, but it definitely can help ease symptoms and it can help manage symptoms, but it can also cure people. I have a friend, she's a 75, maybe 70, in her 70s. She started to follow my method and she had knee pain. It solved this problem. And again, it's a very simple thing to do, but it has to be done systematically every day. It's not just a one-time
Body
thing.
work, part of having the optimal inputs. It's kind of funny that we have to talk about this, about drinking water, but here we are. It's kind of funny.
Hydration is overlooked and neglected.
I hadn't thought much about it until a few years ago. I was working with a business consultant, and he made a big fuss about hydrating. First time I've ever really seen that from a business consultant. He said, when I'm working with business owners, he went through a background kind of similar to what we're talking about. A lot of folks doing caffeinated drinks, coffee, just getting by, and facing the day without the mental clarity that he thought they needed as business owners. So he developed a little challenge, a little program, and he asked his businesses that he was consulting with to start the day by hyperhydrating. First thing in the morning, you've been on a water fast all night. You go get your water, you drink up to 24 ounces. And then throughout the day, his was a little different approach, but not that different from yours. His was simply when you think about water or when you think that you're thirsty, drink a little. So when you think, you drink. And that was his motto that he pushed. And then he wanted us to track for 14 days to see what would happen. And the business owners, didn't matter whether they were men or women, old or young, uniformly reported better production, better mental focus, better acuity, because they had such poor habits to start with. So that little change was a measurable difference in their lives. And that was interesting because I had never seen that, especially not from a business consultant. You hear that from the gym folks, maybe the doctors, not a business guy. But he'd gone through his own caffeine, coffee abuse kind of stage in life, and he was finding the same mental acuity problems from being perpetually dehydrated because he was a coffeeholic. That's the way he described himself. So, and it was kind of interesting. So in the morning, long leader to my question. First thing in the morning, I go to get a drink. Does it matter how much I drink? How do I start my day? Should I do what that guy says and guzzle 24 ounces? Or should I do something else? Or does it matter?
So again, it depends of your metabolism and
How
constitution.
about for you? What do you do to start? How does your hydration start each morning?
So I drink maybe this amount, a little bit, and then I eat my breakfast. So this would be, I don't know how many ounces, just a little bit. Again, I try not to drink too much at once. I would, except of course, if there's a heat wave or if I'm extremely thirsty. But I would, a glass of water like that, I would try to sip it regularly, not to drink it all at once. Again, sometimes you have to rehydrate, right? For example, if I'm I cannot drink for an hour or 2 hours, it happens. I will rehydrate myself with a big quantity, large quantity of water. But what I usually do is take sips of water regularly during the day. This is my hydration method.
I like it. I think it's great. I think it's great for everybody. Athletes, sedentary folks, office folks. I know I feel better when I'm following the approach. It simply works better. So what does the future hold? What are you going to do with this information? How are you sharing it? What are you doing with it? How are folks engaging with you and the information?
How can folks interact with me? They can go to my website. It's balado.com. So Balado, I think you see my name, Baladi. So it's Balado. It's Baladeau. It's the same as Baladi, but with EAU at
And
the end.
I'll put that in the show notes so they can find you. So when they go there, then what?
Then at the bottom of my website, there's a box where they can send me messages if they want to.
Why would they reach out to you? Because you're such a high-level expert. Why would somebody be reaching out to you?
Well, for example, I live in the Bay Area, as I mentioned, and there's a French bookstore. And I'm selling my book in French, which is here. This is the French.
Mine is,
Hydratez-vous.
thankfully, mine is not French, or I would not be reading it.
And somebody purchased my book, and I also have a business card, so I don't know if she took my business card at the French bookstore or if she just she Googled my name and she found me, but she sent me, I presume, again, she might have found me by Googling my name, and she found balado.com, and she sent me a message and she told me, thank you, I have started to follow your method, and now I can sleep better. It has helped her with her sleeping. So now yes. And also some other people. So it's a way to interact with me and to continue the conversation, because they could have questions for me. Okay, I'm following your method. Some people can adjust, actually. And I mentioned this in my book. I describe the basis of my hydration method, but people should adjust the protocol, the routine, based on the improvement of their symptoms. Again, this method is mainly for people who are suffering from medical condition, or even if they are tired, they suffer from fatigue or headaches maybe. So it's usually for people who are suffering from a medical condition, or also people who are worried to go to the bathroom, and this is mainly for females, because usually when I first discuss hydration with people and females, the first reaction is, oh, if I drink too much, I will have to go to the bathroom all the time. And again, my hydration method does not provoke the need to go to the bathroom too often. This is one
That was
advantage of
interesting
my
to see that you
method.
addressed it in the book, because that is a bit of a misconception. Now, if I do guzzle a lot of water, so if I knock down 3 of these glasses, which I could do, my body can only store so much. I can hydrate the blood a little bit more. I can have a little bit more in the organs, but anything extra has to pass through. I can't hang on to it. I don't have an extra little storage tank for water, which is part of the brilliance of the sipping, because I need water constantly. But if I get more than I can use, it's got to go out.
Exactly.
I'm going to have to make that pit stop while I'm driving, which I don't like to do. But if I'm taking the right amount, sipping the right amount, I'm good. And it does solve the problem for a lot of women, but me too. Anybody else that thinks they need to just guzzle, because the body can't store the excess, at least not more than just a little bit in the blood, a little bit in the organs, but not for long. Anything extra's got to go out. So yeah, the sipping solves that. And that's interesting to see it addressed in the book, because I've never seen anybody else address that in writing, but it makes perfect sense. And it's a real relief to a lot of folks, especially those that have to do long road trips. That's super.
And I will add that for most of the people, because some people have a very good body metabolism, but when you drink, you mentioned that if you gulp this, or if you drink this water of glass at once, your body will react. It's a protective mechanism. Your body will urinate more, and what will happen if you drink this at once? It will just dilute your urine, and it will not do the benefit. It will not be able to do the beneficial effects of hydrating all your cells in your body. And the reason is because it's a protective mechanism. It is to prevent your body to have too much water in your body, because
Which
this
can be toxic itself.
Yes, which is toxic. It's called hyponatremia. If you have too much water in your body, your sodium concentration decreases, and it can be life-threatening, actually. So again, drinking a large amount of water, there's a protective survival mechanism in your body that tells your body to remove water, to discard the excess of water. I just wanted to add this.
This book, was it originally in French?
Yes.
And then you translated it?
Yes.
Wow. All right. I can't remember how much this was on Amazon, but it's not much.
The paperback is $6.99.
Well worth it. Well worth getting. Handy guide, and gets right to the point. I don't like information books that spend a lot of time telling stories before they get to the point. This one is perfect.
Thank you.
Very useful. I like it. Well, I appreciate your time. This has been awesome, very informative, very helpful. And I hope you folks that are watching this will reach out, get the book, spend some time, figure out your hydration, and connect with Dr. Baladi. Making yourself available through the Baladi website is fantastic. I think it's great. I think this really moves the needle for a lot of folks. So I appreciate your time. Any last parting comments before we wrap up?
Well, again, it's time to hydrate.
Okay, there we go. That's awesome.